Have you ever lain awake at night, staring into the quiet darkness, and asked yourself, when my body finally stops breathing, where does my mind go? Not my thoughts about tomorrow's meeting or yesterday's argument, but the very essence of awareness, that silent witness behind every experience. Does it vanish into nothingness? Or does it continue, like a river flowing beyond the edge of a cliff, unseen but never gone? This question has haunted humanity for millennia. Religions offer promises. Science offers silence. But Buddhism offers something different, something radical, profound, and startlingly peaceful. It doesn't promise heaven or threaten hell. Instead, it invites you to look directly at the nature of your own mind, right here, right now, and discover a truth that transforms how you live, how you die, and what you believe happens in between. In this video, we'll journey deep into one of Buddhism's most misunderstood yet liberating teachings, that death is not an end, but a transition. Not a full stop, but a kamma. And the mind. It doesn't disappear. It flows. But where, and how, depends entirely on what you cultivate in this life. So if you've ever feared death, avoided the topic, or simply wondered what lies beyond your final breath, stay with me. Because what you're about to hear might just change everything you thought you knew about life, death, and the mysterious continuity of consciousness. Let's begin with a simple but often overlooked truth. The Buddha never spoke of a permanent soul. Unlike many spiritual traditions, Buddhism rejects the idea of an unchanging, eternal self that survives death like a ghost in a cosmic waiting room. Instead, the Buddha taught something far more dynamic. A stream. Imagine a river. You can't step into the same river twice, as the ancient philosopher Heraclitus said, because the water is always moving. In the same way, your mind is not a static thing. It's a flowing current of awareness, shaped moment by your intentions, your memories, your perceptions, and your choices. This stream doesn't begin at birth, and it doesn't end at death. It simply changes course. When the body, the temporary vessel, ceases to function, this stream doesn't evaporate. It continues. But not as you, in the way you think of yourself right now. There's no I that flies off to a new body like a bird leaving a cage. Instead, the momentum of your mental habits, your kamma, your intentional actions, carries forward like a flame passing from one candle to the next. The flame isn't the same, yet it's not entirely different either. This is rebirth, not reincarnation. And understanding this distinction is the key to unlocking Buddhism's view of death without fear. Now, you might be thinking, but how can consciousness continue without a brain? Isn't the mind just a product of neurons firing? This is where modern science and ancient wisdom seem to collide. And yet, Buddhism doesn't deny the body's role. It fully acknowledges that the body is the current support for this moment of consciousness, just as a lamp supports a flame. But when the lamp breaks, does the energy of the flame cease to exist? No. It transforms. Similarly, the mind in Buddhism is not considered material. It's made not of atoms, but of volition, memory, feeling, and perception, what the Buddha called the five aggregates. These are impermanent, interdependent, and constantly in flux. At death, the physical support dissolves, but the karmic energy, the imprint of your intentions, doesn't just disappear. It seeks a new condition to arise. Think of it like a seed. A seed doesn't die when the fruit falls from the tree. It carries the potential for a new tree, waiting for the right soil, water, and sunlight. In the same way, your last conscious moments, your final thoughts, emotions, and mental state, act like fertile ground for the next phase of the mind's journey. This is why, in Buddhist death practices, there's such emphasis on creating a peaceful, mindful atmosphere around the dying. Because the quality of your final moments can shape the quality of your next becoming. Let's look at a real example. In the year 2005, a Tibetan monk named Geshe Lama Konchog passed away in Nepal. His students didn't mourn in the typical Western sense. Instead, they surrounded his body with chants, mantras, and silence. Why? Because they believed his consciousness was still active, processing, transitioning, and preparing for its next manifestation. For 3 days after his clinical death, his body remained warm at the heart, a sign in Tibetan Buddhism that the consciousness had not yet fully departed. This isn't superstition. It's based on centuries of meditative observation. Advanced practitioners train their entire lives to remain aware during the death process, to recognize the subtle stages of dissolution, to let go without fear, and to direct their mind toward liberation or a favorable rebirth. But you don't need to be a monk to benefit from this understanding. Even ordinary people can prepare. How? By learning to observe the mind now. Every time you notice anger arising and choose patience, every time you act with kindness instead of selfishness, you're planting karmic seeds that will bear fruit, not only in this life, but beyond it. Death, then, becomes less a mystery and more a mirror. It reflects what you've nurtured in your heart. But what exactly is kamma? Often mistranslated as fate or destiny, kamma is actually far more empowering. It's the natural law of moral cause and effect. Every intentional action, whether physical, verbal, or mental, creates an imprint in the mind. These imprints are not punishments or rewards handed down by a divine judge. They're more like ripples in a pond. Throw a stone of greed into your mind, and the ripples will distort your perception, your relationships, and eventually, your future experiences. Throw a stone of generosity, and the ripples bring clarity, connection, and openness. At death, it's not your bank account or your resume that matters, it's the quality of your mind. The strongest kammic imprints, especially those reinforced near the end of life, determine the next birth's conditions. Whether you're reborn in a state of suffering, pleasure, or even a realm conducive to awakening. The Buddha described 6 realms of rebirth, not as literal places, but as psychological states that reflect the dominant qualities of one's mind. The hell realm of hatred, the hungry ghost realm of craving, the animal realm of ignorance, the human realm of balance and potential, the demigod realm of jealousy, and the God realm of blissful distraction. But here's the liberating part. None of these are permanent. They're all part of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth fueled by ignorance and craving. The goal of Buddhist practice isn't to get a better rebirth, it's to awaken so completely that the cycle ends altogether. So if the mind continues, why don't we remember our past lives? Excellent question. The Buddha addressed this directly. He explained that memory depends on the continuity of the physical brain and the specific conditions of each life. Just as you don't remember every dream from last year, the transition from one life to the next involves a profound reset, a veil that obscures past experiences to allow fresh engagement with the new world. But that doesn't mean the past doesn't influence the present. Ever met someone and instantly felt deep trust or inexplicable dislike? Ever had an unshakable talent or fear with no clear origin? Buddhism suggests these may be echoes of past kamma. In fact, the Buddha himself, upon his enlightenment, recalled countless past lives, not as a display of power, but as proof that the mind stream is vast and ancient. Yet he cautioned against becoming obsessed with past life recall. Why? Because the real work isn't in remembering where you've been, it's in shaping where you're going. And that begins with this breath, this thought, this choice. The past is fixed. The future is shaped by the present. That's the empowering heart of kamma. Now, let's return to the moment of death itself. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there's an entire manual for dying called the Bardo Thodol, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It describes in vivid detail the stages of dissolution the consciousness undergoes after the body stops breathing. First, the earth element dissolves into water. Then water into fire. Fire into air. Air into consciousness. Finally, consciousness itself dissolves into the clear light of reality, the luminous ground of being. For most people, this process happens too quickly to recognize. They're swept away by fear, regret, or attachment, and rebirth occurs almost immediately, driven by unconscious habits. But for those who've trained in meditation, this moment is the ultimate opportunity. In that gap between lives, called the bardo, the mind is exceptionally clear and pliable. If you can recognize the clear light for what it is, your true nature, you can break free from samsara entirely. If not, your karmic tendencies will project a new reality, and you'll take rebirth according to your deepest mental patterns. This isn't fantasy. It's a map of consciousness based on thousands of years of inner exploration. And the beauty is, you don't need to wait until death to test it. Every night when you fall asleep, you undergo a mini-death. Your senses withdraw, your thoughts dissolve, and for a moment, before dreams arise, you touch that same clear light. If you've ever woken up feeling deeply peaceful for no reason, you've brushed against it. Death, then, is just a deeper version of this nightly journey. But here's the most practical insight of all. You don't need to believe any of this to benefit from it. Buddhism isn't about blind faith. The Buddha himself said, "Do not believe in anything simply because you have heard it. Do not believe in traditions because they have been handed down for many generations." Instead, he invited investigation. So ask yourself, in this very moment, is your mind continuous? Watch your thoughts. One thought arises, passes away, and another takes its place. Yet there's an awareness that remains, unchanged, observing. That awareness isn't born when you wake up, and it doesn't die when you sleep. It's always here. Now, imagine that same awareness continuing beyond the body's limits. Not as a personal identity, but as a current of knowing, shaped by love or fear, clarity or confusion. The practice, then, is to purify that current now. How? Through mindfulness, through ethical living, through letting go of hatred, greed, and delusion. Because the mind that meets death is the same mind you're cultivating right now. Every time you choose compassion over indifference, you're not just making this life better. You're preparing your consciousness for its next chapter. That's the radical responsibility and freedom of the Buddhist path. Consider the story of Angulimala, one of the Buddha's most dramatic disciples. Before meeting the Buddha, Angulimala was a feared murderer who wore a garland of fingers from his victims. He believed in no morality, no consequences, just power and survival. But when the Buddha appeared before him, calm and fearless, something cracked open in Angulimala's heart. He renounced violence, became a monk, and eventually attained full awakening. Even after his transformation, people still threw stones at him out of fear and hatred. He accepted their abuse without anger, saying, "This is just the kamma I created." His past actions had consequences, yes, but they didn't define his future. His final moments were peaceful, filled with compassion. And according to the texts, he was reborn in a heavenly realm, not because he earned a reward, but because his mind at death was purified. This story teaches us that it's never too late. No matter what you've done, the mind can change. And that change ripples into the next life. So if you carry guilt, regret, or fear about your past, know this: your next moment and your next life are shaped by your present intention. Not by what you were, but by what you choose to become right now. Now, let's address a common fear. What if I'm reborn in a terrible place? The Buddha acknowledged the possibility of rebirth in suffering realms, but he also emphasized that these are temporary, and more importantly, avoidable. The human realm, despite its pains, is considered incredibly precious precisely because it offers the perfect balance of pleasure and suffering. Enough joy to inspire hope, enough pain to motivate change. It's the ideal training ground for awakening. And being born human isn't random. It's the result of past ethical conduct, generosity, and mental discipline. So if you're alive now, watching this video, asking deep questions, that itself is a sign of favorable kamma. Don't waste it. Use this life to cultivate wisdom and compassion. Because when death comes, and it will come for all of us, you want your mind to be like a calm lake, not a stormy sea. The great Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "The day of your birth is also the day of your death." Not to frighten you, but to remind you, life and death are not separate. They're woven together in every breath. In fact, at the cellular level, your body is dying and renewing itself constantly. Old skin cells fall away, new ones form. Thoughts die, new ones arise. So death isn't something that happens only at the end, it's happening right now, in miniature. To understand death, then, is to understand impermanence, and to live fully in each fleeting moment. This brings us to the deepest truth. The mind cannot be destroyed by death because it was never truly born. The Buddha taught that what we call mind is empty of inherent existence. It has no fixed core, no permanent owner. It arises dependently, like a rainbow appearing when sunlight hits rain. When the conditions change, the rainbow vanishes, but nothing was ever lost. In the same way, at death, the conditions supporting this particular manifestation of consciousness dissolve. But awareness itself, the luminous, knowing quality, was never bound to form. It's like space. You can't destroy space by tearing down a house. Space remains. Similarly, when the body dies, the mind's essence doesn't go anywhere, because it was never here, in a solid, locatable sense to begin with. This is the teaching of anatta, no self, and it's the ultimate antidote to fear. If there's no permanent me to die, then what is there to lose? This isn't nihilism. It's liberation. It means you're not a tiny, fragile self trapped in a decaying body. You're part of an unbroken flow of awareness, wisdom, and compassion that has been unfolding since beginningless time, and will continue until awakening is complete. And that awakening, it's possible in this very life. So where does the mind go when the body dies? According to the Buddha, it flows wherever kamma leads it, shaped by love or fear, clarity or delusion, generosity or greed. But more importantly, the question itself points to a deeper invitation. Don't wait until death to find out. Investigate the mind now. Sit in silence. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Notice how they arise and pass like clouds in the sky. See if you can rest in the awareness behind them, the silent, spacious presence that's always been there. That's your true nature. And that nature is never born and never dies. Death is just the body returning to the earth. The mind. It returns to its source, only to arise again, unless you awaken fully. And awakening isn't about escaping life, it's about seeing through the illusion of separation. When you realize that, death loses its sting. Not because you've found an afterlife to cling to, but because you've discovered that what you truly are was never threatened by death in the first place. If this video resonated with you, if it stirred something deep inside, don't let it end here. The Buddha's path isn't meant to be admired from afar. It's meant to be lived. So right now, take one small step. Sit for just 5 minutes in silence. Watch your breath. Notice when your mind wanders, and gently bring it back. In that simple act, you're not just calming your mind, you're preparing for death and awakening to life. If you found value in this exploration, please like this video, share it with someone who's grappling with these questions, and subscribe for more deep dives into timeless wisdom. And leave a comment below. What's one insight from this video that changed how you see life or death? Your words might inspire someone else walking this path. Remember, you don't need to fear the unknown. You only need to understand the mind that's asking the question. Because when you know the mind here and now, you already know where it goes. And that knowledge, it's freedom.